The Salesalien Chronicles, Book 1, Closing Deals Across the Galaxy, by David Rousseau. What if the secrets to closing impossible deals weren't found in boardrooms, but in battle across the galaxy? Sales and business can feel like a distant galaxy, complex, unpredictable, and sometimes downright alien. But across the stars, Zarnak Quorr has faced impossible clients, ruthless competitors, and negotiations where entire worlds hung in the balance. Every mission is woven with battle-tested sales truths, lessons in influence, resilience, strategy, and closing under pressure. Now, you can bring those same insights back to Earth, into your office, your boardroom, and your biggest deals, and take your skills to truly stellar heights. Introduction. From the frozen trade, moons of the outer rim to the gleaming corridors of galactic commerce, this is a story about deals, the kind that can unite civilizations, or destroy them. Meet Zarnak Quorr, legendary closer of the Galactic Commerce Corps. He has negotiated in zero gravity, under enemy fire, and before a hive mind of 89,000 insectoid beings speaking as one. He has persuaded xenophobic rock species, outmaneuvered cunning rivals, and closed contracts with water beings who could dissolve both steel and weak proposals. Across these missions, you'll uncover 10 rules that guide every negotiation, every pitch, every close. Some are obvious, some are hidden in the silence between words. See if you can spot them before they're revealed. Strap in. Activate your translation circuits. Watch closely, because in sales, on Earth or across the stars, the deal isn't done until the agreement is signed, the credits are transferred, and the closer walks away victorious. Chapter 1, Cold Calls in the Cold Void. The cold void of space, in kind to uninvited guests. Zarnak Quorr's ship shuddered as it pierced the icy atmosphere of Virix 9, a mining moon so remote. Even the local rock species rarely bothered leaving their caverns, and yet here he was, armed with a prototype mining rig, a translator device, and a sales pitch that might just melt the frost around their hearts. The landing was rough. The airlock groaned as it sealed behind him, and the first things Zarnak noticed was the smell, if you could call it that, of stone. No atmosphere, no scent, no niceties, just sheer, unyielding rock. The Virexians, squat and jagged, emerged slowly from their caverns, eyes glinting like embedded minerals, curiosity tinged with suspicion. Zarnak cleared his throat. Greetings, I bring innovations that could double your yield and halve your effort. Silence. Not the polite pause of a tentative yes or no, real silence, like he'd just spoken into a vacuum. He adjusted his translator, recalibrated the inflection patterns, and tried again. Imagine extracting twice the ore without risking collapse. One Virexian tilted its head. That was something. A crack in the icy wall of xenophobia. Zarnak smiled inwardly. First impressions weren't everything. They opened the airlock. He launched into his pitch. Careful not to overwhelm, careful not to oversell. Every gesture, every schematic flashed across the holographic display had to bridge species, language, and logic he barely understood. And yet, for all the alien strangeness, the principles were universal. Hook them fast, build credibility, and demonstrate value. By the time the sun, or what passed for a sun, skimmed the horizon of Virix 9, Zarnak had made progress. A nod here, a subtle vibration there. The deal wasn't closed, but the first crack had appeared in their icy reserve. And as he packed up, ready for the next phase, Zarnak knew one thing: in sales, even across galaxies, the first impression didn't seal the deal, but it could open the door. He smiled, and just like that, Zarnak Quorr had made contact in the cold void. A small victory in a universe full of impossible deals. Chapter 2, Objection Handling on Planet No. Zarnak Quorr had faced silence before, but nothing quite like the silence of the No-Lari Council. A room full of sentient slugs, each the size of a small crate, staring, or rather, gliding at him with eyes that seemed to see straight through his soul. Not a word, not a sound, just slime trails glistening across the polished floor. Greetings, Zarnak said, trying to keep his voice steady. I bring solutions that could optimize your nutrient absorption cycles and streamline your communal storage systems. Nothing, not even a flicker. Zarnak adjusted his translator, scanning the council's subtle movements. Here, no was more than a word, it was a language of posture, pulsation, and glistening trails. The challenge wasn't rejection, it was comprehension. Each slime's tiny contractions, each inch it advanced or recoiled, spoke volumes. He recalled a principle he had learned long ago. No usually means not yet, not now, or I don't understand. So he pivoted, slowing his pace, letting the council absorb each schematic, each data point. Without rushing, he asked questions simple, visual cues that required only observation to answer. A ripple across the floor, a faint vibration in response to a diagram. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Zarnak smiled beneath his helmet. Active listening didn't require words. It required patience, attention, and the willingness to meet your client where they were, even if where was a viscous puddle of alien intelligence. By the end of the session, a pattern had emerged. One slug in particular began gliding closer, hovering over the models he displayed. Zarnak took it as a sign, a subtle yes, not loud, not proud, but a start. And in sales, especially interstellar sales, a start was often the hardest part. He packed up his materials, leaving behind a trail of hope in the form of carefully calibrated schematics. Planet No hadn't rejected him. It had simply challenged him to understand, and Zarnak Quorr thrived on challenges. Chapter 3. The Discount Dilemma of the Deltrans. Zarnak Quorr had faced tough competitors before, but nothing quite like Rixen Veldar and his notorious 40% discount. The Deltrans prided themselves on efficiency, and Rixen prided himself on undercutting anyone brave enough to play the interstellar sales game. Today, Zarnak was on the line for a critical shipment of planetary mining equipment, and Rixen's price had dropped like a meteor fast, flashy, and dangerously tempting. Zarnak stared at the bid hologram, hovering in front of him, cheaper, sleeker, deadly to his chances if he played it the wrong way. But Zarnak had learned a universal truth across galaxies. Competing on price was a trap. A deal won on numbers alone was a deal doomed to evaporate at the first rival who offered more zeros on the discount line. He leaned back, scanning the client's reactions. They were curious, yes, but cautious, and that was his opening. Zarnak switched tactics. Instead of cutting his price, he built value layer by layer, module by module, feature by feature. The hologram shimmered with augmented analytics showing long-term savings, enhanced productivity, and service guarantees that no discount could replicate. Look beyond the sticker, Zarnak said calmly. This isn't just equipment. It's a system designed to make your operation safer, faster, and more profitable every cycle. The Deltrans leaned in. Numbers were important, yes, but risk mitigation, uptime, and support mattered more. Slowly, deliberately, Zarnak stacked the intangible benefits on top of the tangible ones. Value, not price, became the narrative. By the end of the meeting, Rixen's discount was irrelevant. The client wasn't just buying a product, they were buying confidence, efficiency, and peace of mind. Zarnak closed the deal without ever shaving a single credit off his original price. In the galaxy of sales, the lesson was clear. You don't beat competitors by fighting them on their terms. You win by teaching your client the difference between cheap and truly worthwhile. And Zarnak Quorr, he just taught another species the art of value. Chapter 4. Selling to a hive mind. Zarnak Quorr had negotiated with tough clients before, but nothing could have prepared him for the collective of KRRRK, an insectoid hive mind, composed of 89,000 individual beings operating as one voice, one mind, one relentless focus on efficiency. Emotional appeals, charm, or flashy demonstrations were meaningless here. Only data, only results, only logic. The chamber was a buzzing cathedral of synchronized movement. The Kirk shifted as one, wings vibrating, antennae probing, all scanning his presentation with collective precision. Zarnak opened his holo projector and displayed the optimized mining algorithms, the throughput simulations, and the predictive maintenance protocols. Every chart, every graph, every calculated projection had to be flawless. They require precision, he muttered to himself, adjusting the timing of his pitch, and they won't forgive mistakes. Each slide clicked into place, every number cross-checked in real time. Zarnak spoke quickly, but deliberately. emphasizing efficiency gains, reduced cycle times, and measurable outcomes. There were no nods of approval, no hesitation, no applause, only the collective processing, absorbing, analyzing. A subtle ripple ran through the hive, a shared acknowledgement of comprehension. That was enough. Zarnak knew the Kirk didn't need enthusiasm. They didn't need stories. They needed certainty. Data-driven persuasion was the universal language here, and he had spoken it fluently. When the final simulation concluded, the hive shifted closer to his display, antennae brushing against the edges of the console. The deal wasn't emotional. It was inevitable. They recognized value where it mattered, in performance, speed, and reliability. Zarnak smiled. One more species convinced. One more impossible negotiation successfully executed across the galaxy. And in that moment, he understood a truth that applied to all sales, no matter the client. Know your audience, even if your audience has 89,000 voices speaking as one. Chapter 5. The emotional close on Alara 7. Zarnak Quorr had mastered the logic of sales across galaxies. But sometimes, even numbers couldn't seal the deal. On Alara 7, a world of liquid oceans and shifting tides, he faced Saraya, a compassionate water being, whose gentle currents had almost washed away the opportunity. She had hesitated, backing out at the last moment, and no array of charts or efficiency models could sway her. Zarnak took a breath, letting the usual sales scripts fall away. He needed something different, something real. Saraya, he began, I want to share a story. My first lost deal, it was with a planet not so different from yours. I was overconfident, thinking numbers alone would convince them. I walked away empty-handed. I remember staring at the stars, wondering if I was cut out for this job. Her rippling form paused, the currents around her slowing. Zarnak continued, letting vulnerability and honesty guide him. I learned that day that people or beings buy emotionally first. They justify it logically later. And I've never forgotten that lesson. For a moment, silence ruled. Then, slowly, the tide shifted. Saraya's form moved closer, water shimmering with subtle approval. The numbers were still important, but now they mattered in the context of trust, empathy, and connection. Zarnak layered his proposal with care, matching her priorities with practical solutions. But the bridge had already been built. By the end of the meeting, the deal was closed not because he had outperformed with logic alone, but because he had connected with her on a personal, emotional level. A reminder that even across galaxies, the greatest universal truth of sales remained unchanged. People buy with their hearts and justify with their minds. Zarnak stepped back, smiling as he watched the gentle waves settle. Another deal closed, another lesson confirmed. Logic could move planets, but empathy could move worlds. Chapter 6. Negotiating under fire. Zarnak Quorr gripped the controls of his stockcraft as it spun in orbit around a hostile asteroid, dodging laser fire from marauding pirate drones. The universe had a way of making deadlines. Interesting. Today's mission. Finalize a multi-planet trade deal worth billions of credits. Distractions were optional. Survival was mandatory. Through the viewport, the drones weaved like predatory fish, their targeting beams cutting across the void. On the comm, the client's envoy remained calm, oblivious or, perhaps indifferent to, the danger surrounding Zarnak. He swallowed a deep breath, letting the chaos sharpen his focus. Panic never closed a deal. Preparation did. Zarnak ran through his mental checklist. Pitch. Ready. Counteroffers? Calculated. Contingencies? Covered. With precision, he transmitted the final contract, timing each clause with a weave of evasive maneuvers. As you'll see, he said, our solution ensures not only increased throughput, but operational security even under extreme conditions. A pulse of lasers struck the hull. He flinched, but the message was clear. He could not let the fire dictate the deal. Calm, composed, confident. Negotiation under fire wasn't about controlling the environment, it was about controlling yourself. Minutes later, the envoy's response pinged back. Approval. Terms accepted. The deal closed. Zarnak exhaled, allowing a rare smile. The pirates retreated, the asteroid loomed silently, and the credits flowed in. Another high-stakes negotiation survived. Another lesson confirmed. Pressure doesn't kill a deal. Poor preparation does. He tapped the autopilot, letting the ship drift in the calm after the storm. Across the galaxy, competitors would talk about audacity. Zarnak knew it was method, discipline, and relentless preparation that turned danger into opportunity. In sales, as in space, the right moves under pressure separated legends from the rest. Chapter 7, The Upsell on Earthen Prime. Zarnak Quorr had just finished closing the initial shipment on Earthen Prime, a planet brimming with untapped potential and ambitious leaders. Most closers would have packed up their gear, logged the sale, and moved on. Not Zarnak. He didn't just close deals, he grew them. As he reviewed the client's operational data, a pattern emerged. Inefficiencies lurked in storage logistics, predictive maintenance, and planetary resource allocation. The solution wasn't more hardware, it was a complete service package, a comprehensive system that would scale their operations far beyond what they had imagined. He leaned forward, activating the holographic display. I noticed a few areas where you could significantly increase throughput while reducing downtime, Zarnak said. The client, initially satisfied with the basic shipment, leaned in, curiosity sparking in their eyes. Zarnak guided them through a carefully constructed proposal, highlighting long-term benefits, cost savings, and strategic advantages. Each suggestion was a solution to a problem they hadn't realized they had or hadn't realized they could solve so elegantly. Slowly, their posture changed from satisfaction to excitement. Why didn't we see this before? One of them asked. Because sometimes, Zarnak replied, you need someone outside the system to spot the opportunities inside it. By the end of the session, the client had not only accepted the upsell, they were enthusiastic. Envisioning a new era of planetary operations, Zarnak closed the deal with a practiced flourish. Knowing he had done more than sell a product, he had expanded the vision. And that was the universal truth of the upsell. Don't just finish the sale, look for the potential, understand the need, and deliver value the client didn't know existed. Across the galaxy, the deals that grew were the deals that lasted. Chapter 8, Losing a Deal to Win the Galaxy. Zarnak Quorr floated in the opulent chambers of Warlord Thraxus, a being whose reputation for ruthless deals was matched only by his vast fleets of starships. Thraxus wanted a weaponized mining, RIG technology that could devastate planets under the guise of resource extraction. The offer was massive. The credits alone could set Zarnak up for a century, but something in the numbers didn't sit right. Selling to Thraxus would compromise lives, destroy planets, and stains Arnak's reputation beyond repair. For the first time in countless negotiations, he faced a deal he could walk away from, and he did. The warlord's eyes narrowed, scanning Zarnak for hesitation or weakness. You refuse, Thraxus hissed, voice like grinding metal. Yes, Zarnak replied evenly, because some deals aren't worth closing, no matter the price. For a tense moment, silence ruled the chamber. Then Thraxus leaned back, a smirk forming that Zarnak didn't expect. Few have the courage to say no, the warlord admitted. I respect that. For now, walking away wasn't easy. The credits, the prestige, they lingered in Zarnak's mind. But with every step toward his ship, he felt the undeniable truth of intergalactic commerce settle in. Every deal you refuse defines your brand more than every deal you make. Integrity, reputation, and the long game mattered far more than short-term gain. By the time Zarnak left the system, word had spread across sectors and star systems. Beings whispered about the closer who turned down billions rather than compromise his values, and in that choice, he had won something far greater than credits: respect, influence, and a legacy that would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. Sometimes, losing a deal was the most strategic sale of all. Chapter 9, Training the Next Generation, or Trying to. Zarnak Quorr had closed deals across the galaxy, negotiated with hive minds, and walked away from billions, but mentoring a rookie, that was a whole new challenge. His newest recruit, a cocky young being named Tivrix, was eager, ambitious, and reckless. You just talk, right? Tivrix said, waving a data pad around like it contained the secrets of the universe. The client will buy if you sound confident enough. Zarnak raised an eyebrow. Confidence without understanding is like trying to mine asteroids with your eyes closed, he said. You might hit something, or you might explode. They landed on a minor trade planet to observe a small negotiation. Tivrix rushed forward, spouting numbers, benefits, and buzzwords faster than a warp drive. The client blinked, and then blinked again, and then looked completely bewildered. Zarnak sighed. Step back. Listen. Understand. Sales isn't talking, it's understanding. He demonstrated the technique. Watch body language, read hesitation, ask the right questions, and build rapport. Slowly, Tivrix began to see the difference. The client responded when they felt heard. When their concerns were understood, the solution became obvious. By the end of the day, Tivrix had learned a critical lesson. The best closers don't dominate the conversation, they guide it. And sometimes, the most important deals weren't about credits or contracts, they were about knowledge, patience, and the next generation of galactic closers. Zarnak looked at his apprentice with a mix of frustration and pride. Mentoring might be slower than a hyperdrive jump, but it was just as crucial, because someday, when Tivrix was out there facing impossible clients, he'd remember this lesson and the galaxy would be a little more skilled. One sale at a time. Chapter 10. Closing the Galactic Megadeal. Zarnak Quorr stood at the center of the Grand Chamber of the Universal AI Trade Alliance, a council of sentient machine intelligences, whose collective processing power made entire star systems look quaint. Every species in known space was watching, literally every species, and one mistake could cost billions of credits, centuries of trust, or even his life. He activated the holoprojector, projecting simulations, analytics, and strategic forecasts across the room. The AIS collective sensors scanned everything: inflection, timing, precision, risk mitigation. There was no room for charm, no room for error. This was pure logic, pure data, and Zarnak had one shot to speak the language of omnipotent minds. Your alliance can maximize trade efficiency across 12,000 sectors. Zarnak began, his voice steady despite the enormity of the audience. Here's how we ensure optimized throughput, resource allocation, and interspecies compliance, with zero downtime or loss. Graphs flashed, models shifted, and predictive outcomes streamed in real time. Every decision Zarnak made was layered, calculated, and deliberate. He relied on the fundamentals that had carried him across a galaxy of clients: preparation, listening, understanding needs, and structuring value. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, the AIS collective consensus rippled through the chamber. Zarnak had done it? The deal was accepted. A historic contract, a triumph of intergalactic commerce, closed by a human who understood that mastering the basics allowed him to sell to anyone, even omnipotent machine gods. As the chamber lights dimmed and Zarnak stepped back, he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Across the stars, he had not only closed the ultimate deal, he had proved that preparation, strategy, and understanding could overcome even the most impossible challenge. In sales, as in life, the fundamentals always prevailed. The galaxy was watching, and for once, everything was exactly as it should be. As Zarnak Quorr drifted among the stars, reflecting on a galaxy of impossible deals, one truth became clear: sales wasn't about tricks, gimmicks, or flashy numbers. It was about principles universal, timeless, and applicable across species, planets, and star systems. Over his career, he had discovered 10 rules that guided every negotiation, every pitch, and every close, principles that mattered whether you were speaking to a xenophobic rock, a hive mind of 89,000 insectoids, or an omnipotent AI. 1. First impressions open the door, but don't assume they close the deal. 2. No is often a starting point, not the end. 3. Value outweighs price every time. 4. Know your audience, even if your audience has 89,000 voices in one head. 5. People buy emotionally, then justify logically. 6. Pressure tests your preparation, not your courage. 7. Don't just close the deal, grow it. 8. Saying no strategically can define your reputation, more than saying yes. 9. Listen before you teach. Understand before you sell. 10. Master the fundamentals, and you can sell to anyone, even gods of logic. Zarnak smiled as he looked out at the swirling galaxies. Each lesson wasn't just about deals or credits, it was about integrity, connection, and vision. Every negotiation had shaped him, Every lost deal had taught him, and every victory had been earned through skill, patience, and empathy. For those who followed in his wake, across planets, sectors, and trading hubs, these weren't just guidelines, they were a philosophy. The galaxy could be chaotic, clients unpredictable, and stakes unimaginably high. But armed with these laws, any closer could navigate the void with confidence. As his ship jumped to the next system, Zarnak Quorr knew one thing with certainty. Sailing across the stars wasn't just a career, it was a craft. And in the vastness of space, a well-crafted deal could change the course of civilizations. Conclusion: sails across galaxies and back on Earth. Zarnak's adventures have shown that no matter how alien the client or how extreme the circumstances, the same principles guide every successful negotiation. First impressions matter. Listening comes before speaking. Value beats price. And integrity outlasts every quick win. These aren't just rules for interstellar commerce, they're rules for any human, team, or company striving to close meaningful deals. Take these lessons back to your office, your clients, and your own galaxies of challenge. Practice them, adapt them, and remember, a great closer isn't made by tricks or luck. They're made by preparation, empathy, and the courage to act with both skill and principle. The universe is full of impossible deals, but armed with these tenets, you can navigate them all.